Hey everyone, today's overview and review video is on Origins First Builders. So if you're new here, my name is Krissy and this is 2 Sheep 1 Wheat. Nick and I play board games and I review them. So if this is your type of content, like this video and subscribe to the channel. Also, we have added members to the channel, so if you're into board games, take a look over there. And again, thank you to all of the members who have already joined. Thank you. So Origins First Builders, there's a bit going on in this game. This is a dice placement game. So let's go ahead and take a look at the table and see about all of the components, and then we'll go over for the little bit of a setup that there is for this one. Okay, so obviously we have the main board here. There's a lot of things going on in here. These are basically all the actions that you're going to be allowed to do. So first we'll talk about these rings up here. You're going to be placing your dice up here. These are called motherships. And basically when you place your dice, they have to be the specific color if you want to get the extra bonus that is in this tile right here. Otherwise, it has to match the number that is on here or higher. So if it is on a 4 here, you can't place a 3 die. And then of course we have all of our dice. We have some tower discs, which correspond with these right here and corresponds with these tiles. So for the game, you're going to try to build these tiles and you're going to be collecting some of the bonuses that are on the tiles. Once you have 4 of them, you can close them off with the dice. And then once you do that, the pips on the dice are going to give you victory points at the end of the game. But to multiply those, you want some of those building discs on your palace. So that is how you're going to be able to multiply it. I'll get into it a little bit further on in the game, but that's basically the main way to score victory points at the end of the game. So in this game, you're going to be scoring victory points throughout the game and at the end of the game as well. So you're laying down the building tiles, and then if you can get the pattern down pat with the colors that are on the tiles for the ones that you have flipped over, then you're going to be able to score some victory points and some gold with those as well. There are 12 zodiac cards in the game. Just randomly place 3 of them. These are all going to be benefits at different times during the game, as long as you utilize these tracks. The person who's further up on the board is going to claim these cards. I'll go over these a little bit later on in the video once we kind of go through the actions and you understand the game a little bit more to understand what the abilities are on these cards. And then resources for the game, we have stone, we have food, we have wisdom, and we also have gold. These tokens right here are basically, when you're passing through this part on the board, you're basically going to discard it so that you can take a turn right away instead of waiting for all the other players to go. Then that brings us to player, setup, and board. Everyone is going to pick a color. Well, I have blue and green set up. We have our miniatures. We have the bases here for the dice that we're going to be collecting. And you have the option to spend food, which as an action is basically growing your population. And then of course the board that everything goes with is going to be the same color that you choose. And like I was saying, you start off with the palace and you start off with the agora. So you start off with these 2 tiles and you're going to use these to build off of. So that is basically for player setup. At the beginning of the game, you're going to be drafting dice. That is one of the things that for setup that you're going to need to do. The second thing is randomly take some of these district cards. There is a bunch of different ones in this game. So whenever you have, like I said, use these tiles to build up the specific pattern that's on these district cards, you're going to be able to gain the victory points that's on there, and the first person to claim it will also gain 2 gold, which is resource in the game. And then the second player will only gain 7 victory points, and anybody can gain it after that, and it'll always just be 7 victory points. So on top of these cards are different colored buildings, and that basically corresponds with these building discs here. So it's always 1 for each player, and then you're going to count however many of that specific building is on top of these cards and place just as many discs as there are on there. So that's how you build up for that. These dice here are going to be rolled and placed in order from lowest to highest, and none of these dice can ever be a 6. Anytime you roll a 6, you need to re-roll it and place the new number out there. And then obviously these cards here, but these ones just get randomly placed. Then you'll be able to place all of your color discs out in these locations on the board. So that is basically for setup and components for the game. Let's go ahead and look into the actual actions that you can take throughout the game and what basically a turn is like. So we have our drafted dice that we chose at the beginning of the game, and we also have this nice player aid, so it's going to go through all of the actions that you can take for your turn. So the first one is visit an encounter site. So now we're going to be using our dice. This is the dice placement part, and we're going to visit an encounter site. So now what you want to do is really utilize the colors of the dice with the specific color encounter site. So in this case, I have 1 for the blue die. I wouldn't necessarily be able to place it there because it's on the 6. Now all of these are going to start at 1. And so technically I would have been able to place this here, but let's just say we're further on in the game. I can't place it here. So this would have started on a 1, but just to show if it is a 6, you wouldn't be able to place it there. You would have to pick another destination to put it on there. You'll get more use out of the same color die as the encounter site, because you'll be able to do this extra bonus down here. So basically this one here, we're going to collect one resource, one basic resource, which is stone, food, or wisdom, but then we also get gold as well. So you can choose and pick whichever one that you want. Let's go with those ones. But you also have the choice between those two. If I wanted a die, you can just take it here, and it's going to cost wisdom to be able to purchase these dice. But you would need an empty tray, which is an action that we'll get to a little bit later on. So we chose to pick one of those. Now we do get to do the extra bonus here. So for 1 stone, you would be able to move up on this track here. This is the temple track here with the constellations. So you could pick which one you wanted to go up in. Now to score points at the end of the game with this one, it is the lowest 2. So a lot of the times you can rise up in one of the locations, but you could stay pretty low at the bottom. Let's reverse that. You could stay pretty low at the bottom. So in this case, at the end of the game, if this is what it was, you are only counting your least 2. So you would only get 2 victory points here. If you are selecting this one, you wouldn't claim this card right away. However, at the end of the round, once you have no more dice, you're going to need to pass, which is on the backside of the player aid. So once you pass, then after everybody has passed, the person highest up on this track will be able to collect the cards. And those are just bonuses depending on different times that they come in handy. So for Cancer here, it says when passing, if you have a free population base, so if you had this up here, you'd be able to take one of these citizen dice for free instead of paying the wisdom cost at the bottom. So you'd be able to gain one of those for free. Libra here, it says every time you close a district. Now, closing a district is the next action that we can do, but it's basically when you have 4 tiles and you're going to take your dice and place it in the middle, and that's just closing it off. So the next time that you do that, you can take one of the citizen dice from the offer, but you still have to pay the wisdom cost, but then it's not utilizing one of your dice as an action. And then Scorpio says every time that you close a district or have it to add a 1 to a value of 6 citizen dice, then you gain 1 wisdom, which you would just take the wisdom and add it to your pool. So those are the 3 that we have. There are 12 in the box. So that is visiting an encounter site. I'll go through all of them and what their abilities are. So for this orange one here, you're going to be able to gain, if you place an orange die and it matches, then you'll be able to collect the colored bonus on here. Now, when you place your dice on here, you want to rotate it so that it goes up for the next player. In this case, the next player would only be able to put a 3 or a higher die. So when we place the blue one here, it also gets to rotate. So we place the orange die here. Again, we have the choice to do either or and the orange bonus, which is gaining one of these dice. So the white dice in this game are speaker dice, and they're just a temporary die that you can use. After everybody has passed, you're going to collect the rest of your dice, but in this case for the speaker dice, they just go back and they rotate up 1 number. So they're always changing their dice numbers. If it gets up to a 6 pip on the die, then it is re-rolled and a new number is picked. Anytime any of these dice are rolled a 6, you have to re-roll them because you cannot take a 6. When the dice reaches 6, something else happens, and I will get to that soon. Now, in the case that you have a 6 pip die in your supply, you can place it, and now, if it is the same color die as the location it's in, you can do all 3 of those actions. So like I was saying, the top one here is just simply collecting 3 stone. The second one here goes with the military track here. So basically, this icon means that you can move up 1 spot on the military track. Now, anytime that you pass one of these icons, this is the token that will allow you to discard it and do your turn right away again, instead of waiting for everybody else to go. So once you do that, then you pass that, you gain that token, and this icon here is battle. So battle is basically collecting victory points based on where you are on the track. In this case, you're going to count each player behind you as 1 victory point and each of these locations as another point. So in this case, you would gain 2 victory points for these. Now, let's say that we are further up on the track here. At the end of the round, if you are not past one of these, it's basically like a safe spot. You'll have to backtrack all the way down and start all over at the beginning of your next turn. So those are those locations. We've talked about this die, which is just the speaker die, which is a temporary die that you get to use. Then we'll go to this one. This is collecting 3 food and building. So with this action, this is where you're going to be building the building tiles. All building tiles have an ability on top. They all have a stone cost and a wisdom cost. So whenever you do this action, you're going to place the dice. I forgot my base. This is how you know whose dice belong to which player. So by placing this die here, technically I couldn't, but if it was on a 3, I'd be able to. And then you would rotate it again by placing your die on there. So you have the choice between either of these. Gaining 3 food would just be gaining 3 food to your supply. If you had enough resources, you would be able to build a building tile. So in this case, let's just say that we want to build... What kind of pattern can we build? There's no red or orange up here, just purple, blue, and yellow. I'm not sure that I have enough cost for a blue or a purple, so I think we'll have to stick with an orange or a red. Now, the abilities on here are all going to be different, but as soon as you purchase it and build it and place it on the board, you're going to be able to place it wherever you want, but the way to close a district is by placing an available die right in the center. So let's say we place this here. You're going to gain the effect on here right away. So this one says take 1 building from the market for free and place it next to your player board. So let's say we did want a purple. There's a lot of purple up here. Let's go ahead and take the purple. So that goes to the side of your board. Once you decide to do a build action again, you can build this one, but it's not going to cost you any wisdom. In this case, it was 1 wisdom for the orange tile, the construction site here, and it was the cost of 2 stone. So now if you want to do the build action again, you'll just have to pay the 3 stone instead of paying the wisdom where it was at. So now that is on there. And the more that you build up, the more tiles are on here, the more districts you're going to be able to close. And then for an added bonus, because placing a purple die here, you can pay 1 food to build again. So once the tile has come off, these come up, there's arrows here, and then they just get replenished. So I took an orange one first, and then a purple, and that would go like that. And that's how you get the track flowing for different costs. And then yellow here would be 3 scrolls. You could gain 3 scrolls. Let's say this yellow die here, and you would raise it up. You get 3 scrolls, or you could, for 1 stone, you could go up 2 on one of these tracks and collect one of these cards. So let's say green player wanted to do that one for a stone. We'll pay the cost. Green player can go up twice. Now, technically, the blue player would already have this if it was further on in the game. Now, because this action right here versus this one that we already went through, that was just rising, that was just going up the track once. This one's going up the track twice and basically stealing the card for the benefit on the bottom. So that would go over there. And then at the end of the round, the blue player would collect this again because they are higher up on the track. And then for the added bonus here, you would have the choice of any one of the 3 basic resources. Blue we already talked about, and then red here, let's go through red. This one is gaining 1 of each basic resource if you wanted, or for the cost of 1 to 3 wheat, you could add numbers to your dice, or you could go up on the military track. And if you place the red one here, you would be able to pay 1 wisdom to either go up on the military track or to do a battle, which again, this one would give you 2 victory points if you did resolve the battle. So those are basically all of the actions that you can do on here. Anytime that you do an ability that allows you to take a die off of here, all the dice get shuffled over, the new die would get re-rolled and placed at the end. So we'll go on to the next action, which is closing a district, which I basically spoke about, but let's say that we did another build action, we paid the 3 stone for this, and we closed that off. Now to close the district, you would need an available die, which in this case we don't. We have used all of our dice. Now let's say that we did. Let's say we had this one here, it's a 6. So when you do a pass action, everyone has passed, you're going to recollect all of your dice that you have, and all of the numbers, all of the pips that are on the dice, they're going to go up 1. So let's say that I had taken this one back, it would go up to a 2 because it was a 1. So that's how you're going to move your dice and get higher numbers throughout the game. So if you have a 5, you bring it back, it's going to turn into a 6. Then you can utilize it however you want. Now, if you do place it up here for an action, when you return your 6 die, it's going to retire. And what that means is your die is going to come down here in this location. And you're going to gain victory points based off of how many dice you have in here. And they have to be different colored dice. They cannot be the same. If you were to have 2 orange, say you recollected your 6 yellow or your 6 orange, it would just get discarded. It wouldn't be placed back into the pool. So that is how that works. But if you, let's say, brought this one back, it was a 5, we're going to change it. It's a 6. Okay, so you want to have higher numbers closing off a district, and that is basically just doing that. It's going to open up the base so that you can collect another die and do the action to collect another die. You want higher number pips in here so that when you add the multipliers, which is building a tower level, which is the next action you can do, that's going to multiply it. So if you have multiple orange dice with 6 pips on here, you're going to multiply it by how many tower levels that you have, how many discs that you have in your tower level. And to get those is an action, you have to pay gold. You're going to pay the gold. I only have 1 orange in here, so I only have to pay 1 gold to collect one of the orange discs. And they just simply go on top. We're building a tower. Now, if I wanted to purchase a second or purchase the 3rd disc, because I have 2 in here already, I would need 2 gold in my supply because I have 2 orange discs to be able to purchase another one or build another one. So that's how those work. So right now, at the end of the game, if this is how it was, it would be 6 times 3 victory points that I would gain at the end of the game. Now, if you have multiple on here, you're going to be able to score a very high number just based off of closing districts like that. So that was building a tower as well as closing districts. So the other one is growing population, which is just getting extra bases out from here and paying the food cost. Obviously, you have to feed them if you're going to grow your population, which is just food. So it goes up in increments of 2. So to collect this one, I would need 4 wheat. I only have 1, so technically I wouldn't be able to do it. So that is the other action. And then your last action, if you have no more dice, would be to pass. Now, one thing that we didn't talk about are these miniatures right here. So your miniatures are always a value of 6. You can place them wherever you want as well. Now, with these, they are no colors, so you wouldn't be able to gain the victory, or you wouldn't be able to gain the bonus at the bottom, but you would still be able to collect both of those rewards. Now, when you have a, let's say, 6 die there, that's the wrong base, let's just swap them real quick. So say we have a 6, we all passed, now we're recollecting our dice. When I bring this here, it's going to get retired and placed down here. When that happens, your miniature becomes that color. So you could place it here and now gain all 3. The more dice that you have down here, the more options that you have to place your miniature in any of the locations to gain all 3 benefits. So there's a few things that will end the game. One of them is one player reaching the topmost on all 3 locations for the temple tracks. If only 3 colors are left here for the tower discs. If all, oh, I placed a blue here and it should have been an orange. If all of the dice, let's say the 2 blue are gone and there are no more dice in the pool to be able to place it in here, then that is the end. That is a trigger for the end of the game as well. And then you're going to count the victory points that are in here for any of your retired dice. In this case, you would gain 3 victory points. And if you've reached the end of this track for the population track, you would gain 10 victory points. Then you're going to calculate all of your victory points that you have for any of your closed districts. So in this case here, it would be 6 times 3. So in my case, I would gain 18 victory points, and any gold that you have left over at the game is going to be 1 victory point each. So once you have calculated all of your victory points up, the player who has the most victory points is going to be the winner of Origins. So this is one game that Nick did not teach me. We had a friend teach us, and it wasn't too hard learning the game. It feels like there's a lot, but your dice are basically what's going to allow you to do anything. There's a couple of extra things that you're able to do without the dice, but placing your dice out, depending on whichever encounter site that you're at, is going to do all different things. So learning the game really wasn't too bad. There is, obviously, this isn't a light game. There's a little bit to it. There's a lot of things going on. You can go a bunch of different ways whenever you're playing the game. You can be heavy on the military track. You can be high on the temple track, because you have the possibility really of gaining 140 victory points just off of that track alone. Never done it. Probably will never do it. And the closing off your districts, like building up districts and getting some of those higher dice placed out, is really what's going to give you a lot of victory points for the game. So most of your I feel like most of your time playing this game is going to be closing off and building districts, because that is a very high scoring way to do that. The last game that Nick and I did, I think I scored almost 90 points just off of the districts alone, and Nick scored, I think, like 140 points. So you can score a lot like that. So there's a lot of thinking with the game too. Obviously, placing out your dice, if your die is the right number to go on the specific site that it's in. You can mix match your dice too. Like, it doesn't matter. You don't have to place your die on that specific color either. It's just going to help you get the extra bonus. So just adding a little bit more to your turn that you can actually do. It's very thinky. It's still easy enough. Like, there's really only like 4 things that you can do. Visit the site and then just do whatever the action is on there. Gaining resources is another really big thing too. To gain a lot of one resource is going to cost you a lot of the dice, but there's a lot of thinking. I enjoyed playing this game. It's really fun. It's I don't want to say complicated. It's a lot for me because there's a lot going on, but the more that you play it, obviously, the more that you're going to be better at it. But it was a lot of fun. There are a lot of different tactics, a lot of different ways that you can play this game, some better than others. Theme to this game, I don't know. There is no theme. I'm placing dice out. And I don't find that the military track really showcases much of the military track. To me, this game is really just building tiles for resources and placing dice out. Yeah, to me, the theme, I don't know. The theme really isn't there for me. Not at all. I do like the artwork, though. The artwork is really nice. Everything's nice and popping and colorful. All of the tiles here are really nice to look at, too. There are different styles for all of these tiles here, which is really nice. Still just like really nice to look at, really nice. All of the components too are really nice. I will say player colors, not that much. I don't know, like blue, green, and then black and brown. Those are the player colors that you get to choose from. They're probably not the ones that I would have picked, but I can see kind of why they picked those colors, because of the color of the dice and the locations, all the sites that you're placing the dice at. So I can see why they chose those colors, which bring me to the mothership disc swivel things here. So Nick and I just basically put Sharpie on it so that you can actually see them better, because it was all just the colored plastic that it was, and it was very hard to see. If you have this game or plan on getting this game, I would highly suggest using Sharpie on these. It makes a world of difference to actually be able to see what color is on here. I really love that these just pop off, like there's a hole in the board and you just simply put them in. I really like this whole thing where you're turning it, which is hard for me to remember, but I do like that. That's really neat. I really like that all of the dice come with the bases too, so that you know whose die is whose, just based off of the color off of the board here. All of the wood components and everything. I would have preferred, I think, to have these as actual wooden cubes than just the color on here, or the tokens with the icons on it, or the images on it. But then I guess it's adding to the cost as well for this game. But components wise for the game, I don't think I complain. A lot of plastic, a lot of colorful dice and wooden tokens. So I wouldn't necessarily complain, other than the resources to me is something that I would have preferred to have. But yeah, I can't complain about the components at all for this game, especially the mothership pieces to those. So yeah, my thoughts on the game, it was fun. There is a lot to think of, but for these dice placement, everyone can go anywhere. There's no stopping that person. The only thing that stops that person from going on there is if you have a lesser than value die that you can't place there. However, with this game, you can switch over wisdom. You can switch over the wisdom tokens to up the number on your die. Now, it just doesn't up the number on your actual die. It's just a mental, okay, I have a 3, but I need a 4, so I'm just going to pay 1 wisdom to make it a 4. Which is nice, and it's a one way to get around it. But I do like the fact that any person can place their die on any of the sites, and it's not going to affect that person. Because nothing I hate more than not being able to do something because somebody else did it first. Which still happens in this game, but definitely not placing your dice on any of the sites at all. I did enjoy the game, and I like, as much as I don't like that there's a lot going on, I do like the fact that there's a lot going on. So you can you can pivot with the game if something happens. You can pivot, and you also have different options within the game. Like if you want to take a different tactic, try something new, you can definitely do that with this game because there is a lot going on. There's different tracks that you can maneuver around. There's the military track if you want to do that. You can still gain a lot of victory points for the military track. You're just not going to gain very many at the end of the game. The most that you can gain is 9 from the military track at the end of the game. There are way better ways to gain victory points for the end of the game. I really do like the whole building of the tiles, the building tiles, and then closing off the district with your dice. There's just, I don't know what to say. There's a whole bunch of stuff that's going on with the game, but I do like it all. The more that I play, the better that I'm getting at, the more understanding that I have, the better understanding that I have on which way that I should actually play. I don't think that there's anything that I don't like about the game other than the 2 things that I mentioned that are just really just nitpicks. Really are what they are. But the game plays really well. It's not a bad game. It's like a medium game. It's not light by any means. There's a lot of strategy going on. So if that is something that you're into, definitely take a look at Origins First Builders. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will catch you next time.